1 year ago, I started this channel with the Retroid Pocket 5. 79 videos, 16 hours of content, and 2 million views later, we're back with the Retroid Pocket 6. This is something I've waited for a very long time now. I pre-ordered this the second it went live. And as a teacher, that meant I had to distract my students by giving them a test. So sorry guys, but important things were needing to be done. I've gone for the Ryan Retro Purple here, and it is a pretty close match to my profile. Whoa, that is beautiful. Let's just quickly do the girlfriend test. What do you think of this?
Color is so pretty. 예뻐 예뻐. I like it.
Immediately girlfriend approved. So let's just quickly see what comes in the box. You get the specification sheet, quality assurance, and a USB-C to USB-A cable. Interestingly, no C to C. And that seems to be pretty much it. So let's immediately get straight onto the star of the show, the beautiful Retroid Pocket 6. I've gone for the left stick up top variation here. We've got these beautiful looking crystal buttons. They're kind of floating in midair. As you can see, they have this kind of 3D effect where the letter is at the top of the button and then everything else is kind of sunk below. This is beautiful. We have the same kind of thing with the D-pad as well. This extra transparent layer, which just makes it look quite fancy. The sticks are quite standard, pretty much what we've come to expect on these devices. Some nice looking grips on the side. They almost look like car tires. And a two-tone color here with the purple on top and the white stick underneath. I like this a lot. The shoulder buttons are quite clicky, but not too noisy, which is something Retroid have had a problem with in the past. The triggers are much larger and nicer than the Retroid Pocket 5. These remind me of the triggers on the Odin 2 Portal. Some lovely action there. 4 extra little rounded buttons on the front panel here for start, select, home, and back. All seem to be the same button, and they're quite squishy. They're not too clicky. As some other devices are really clicky, and I'm not a fan of overly clicky buttons in general. These are much quieter. And actually all of the buttons and controls on here are quite quiet. One of the biggest criticisms aimed at Retroid devices in the past few years have been how clicky and loud their buttons are. But these ones certainly sound and feel quieter than before. And we will do a more scientific test on this soon when I compare it to the Retroid Pocket 5 later in the video. On the back we have 2 extra buttons, which I don't really use much on these devices, but they can be nice to have. They do protrude quite a little bit, which I hope doesn't interfere with comfort, and they are quite clicky, but once again, it's just a nice little addition to have. We have the volume down, volume up, and power button at the top, which again follow the same trend of being quite clicky but not too loud. On the bottom, we have the USB-C port, the headphone jack, and the SD card slot, which opens very similarly to the Retroid Pocket 5 on one little rotating peg like this. We have the front-firing speakers here, plenty of ventilation on the back, and one of the interesting features this year is this sparkly dotted effect on the front of the device. This is present on the purple version. I think it's also on the silver version too, but it is quite nice. So now we've looked all around the device, it's time for what I've been so excited for months now. It's time to finally power it on. The screen is very bright. Let's go through the initial setup by connecting to Wi-Fi, setting up my time zone, and enabling Google Play services so I can download apps and games from the Play Store. You'll now get asked what you want to install, and if you're a power user, you probably won't want to install any of these things. But if you're someone who's new to a device like this, there's no real harm in just grabbing everything, playing around and seeing what you like, and then you can go through later and check out guides from people like me about how to better optimize what you're using. We have things like Dolphin for GameCube emulation, DuckStation for PlayStation 1, Flycast for Dreamcast, M64 of course for N64, PPSSPP for PSP emulation, RetroArch for your retro games. There's all kinds of goodies in here that I'm just going to grab all of just for now, but I will of course be releasing tons of guides and setup videos for you to help you get your Retroid Pocket 6 running beautifully. We then have the choice of using the Retroid Pocket 6 launcher or just the default Android style launcher AOSP. The Retroid launcher that came with the Retroid Pocket 5 I thought was pretty bad, but let's see if they've improved anything with the Retroid Pocket 6 launcher. First of all, I should put in my SD card, which has all my games on it. I always use SanDisk SD cards for all of my handhelds. I'll put some in the link in the description below. I do get asked quite often what SD cards I use, and I have had some pretty bad ones mess up everything, so highly recommend SanDisk cards. Okay, the Retroid launcher was giving me loads of problems again, just like it did last year, so forget that for now. Let's instead jump into some Switch gaming and see how it runs. Let's start with Tears of the Kingdom, a game that we couldn't get running on the Retroid Pocket 5. Let's put the device into high performance mode, which does make the fan turn on quite loudly, but as you can see, we are now getting 30 frames per second here. Tears of the Kingdom on the Retroid Pocket 6. This just was not possible on the Retroid Pocket 5. We are building hundreds of shaders right now, so we're bound to get some drops here and there. I've also turned off the speed limit, so we can potentially go above 30 frames per second. But as you can see, overall, it's holding on to 30 frames per second pretty well. Now, if I jump off the edge here, you'll see the FPS tank loads, and we'll see how much it falls down to. It did fall down to 17 frames per second, but still mostly stayed above 20. This is at 720p, docked mode 1 times, with the Mr. Purple T23 driver. And having experience in the past with this same chipset in here before, I can say with confidence, it will run just fine here on the Retroid Pocket 6, as I do know people have completed this game with the same chipset. You may be seeing as I play, we have this little white line on the right side of the screen, which we use to open our settings panel. Now, I do know a way to remove this, but retain the functionality. So it's time for Ryan Retro's tip of the video. This little line is called the floating icon, and if you turn it off, the line disappears, but so does the functionality. What we want to do is keep the functionality, but hide the white line. So in order to do that, you need to come to where it says floating icon, turn it on, but then you also need to tap the little right arrow on the side. Now this can be quite finicky and hard to press. It might take a few presses before it registers properly, but once it does register properly, it will show up like this, floating icon transparency. And we want to just simply slide that all the way to 0, which will make that white line invisible, but retain the functionality in all of your games. So that was Ryan Retro's tip of the video. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip in this is a really well-known, really good chip. So it's going to handle almost every system you can imagine really, really well. It has fantastic driver support, so it's able to play pretty much everything without any glitches or problems. I've only just set this up and I'm playing games right away with no hiccups and no issues that you might get with newer chips. Especially with the 12 gigabytes of RAM version I've got here, it's got more than enough power for pretty much anything I would want to play. The only time I might want more power than this is if I wanted to play more high-end PC games. But for that, we could just do game streaming anyway. For me, this has everything I would want in a handheld like this. So we know the performance is really good. I'll be updating my website with more compatibility reports as well, and be making tons of videos showing the power of this device. So for now, let's focus on the other things, like the speakers, the feel, the comfort, the buttons. I've only just unboxed this, so I obviously cannot give a battery life report yet. That will be coming up soon. What I can do is find out how quickly this recharges. Most handhelds like this charge at around 27 watts, so let's see how fast this will charge with my handy dandy little power meter. It charges at power delivery 3.0 and it is charging at around 25 watts, so pretty much right in line with what we would expect from something this powerful. We do also have some charging limit options as well, so you can limit this to charge only up to 80% if you think that will help preserve the battery. You can allow it to charge at 9 volts 2 amps below 80%, or you can just limit it to 5 volts 2 amps the whole way. So you can see when doing that, the wattage fell down from 24 watts down to 16. If I enable 9 volts again, you'll see the wattage jump back up to 24 watts again. So you can choose what you'd like to do with this. I will keep it at default and just charge it as quickly as possible. That's fine with me. But if you would like to be more conservative with your battery, it's lovely to have options like this. Let's now do some comparisons with some other similar handhelds, starting off with, of course, my wonderful Retroid Pocket 5, the predecessor to this one. And as you can see, it is slightly bigger. Not really in any kind of noticeable way, like, oh my god, this thing's a massive brick. It's basically the same thing. It is noticeably heavier, but honestly in a way that still feels light and comfortable. You can see the Retroid Pocket 6 is quite a bit more substantial than the Retroid Pocket 5. It's thicker, it especially has much larger triggers and grip, which I all think are welcome changes. That larger grip area allowing to accommodate a larger trigger is just a win-win in my opinion. If you've been watching my channel for the past year, you'll know that I adore the Retroid Pocket 5. I only really have two gripes with it. The first one is that these ergonomic bumps are just too small. As you can see, they are much bigger on the Retroid Pocket 6. They are still not too big. I believe they could even be a little bit larger still, but as you can see, they are substantially bigger and girthier than the Retroid Pocket 5, which does make it feel more comfortable to the touch. I can feel that already. If there's one thing I've learned about myself through making this video today, is that I like a thick behind. My other one complaint with the Retroid Pocket 5 was that I wanted the D-pad to be at the top, because I like to play games primarily with the analog stick. With a traditional controller, it doesn't really matter to me much whether the analog stick is down here or up here, because there's still a long space between the middle of your hand and your thumb. Even when it's down here, you're still extending your hand quite a lot to reach up to that analog stick. So it's perfectly comfortable. The problem is with these handhelds, you only get this kind of extension of your thumb with the top control. Holding my hand in the same way it was on that PlayStation, only the thing that's at the top is going to be anywhere similar to that kind of experience. Whatever controls at the bottom is going to force you to bend your thumb right down like that, which is just not comfortable. That's why Retroid, another company, released grips to help push your palm further away from the device to make it more comfortable. But you're naturally going to find whatever is at the top to be more comfortable. Now, I have seen a lot of people online saying they like the analog stick at the bottom because that's where it is on a PlayStation. But that only makes sense if you're using a grip. You're not holding a PlayStation controller like this. That would mean the analog stick on a PlayStation would be down here, which it of course isn't. So whatever is at the top is naturally going to be more comfortable because you get some nice extension of the thumb. So that's why I always personally wish the analog stick was on top, because I was mostly playing analog stick games. Now thankfully with the Retroid Pocket 6, we have the option. You can have the analog stick at the top, or you can have the D-pad at the top. You get to choose what you want, and I think that is a massive win from Retroid. So I personally want the left analog stick at the top, and I'm already finding this far more comfortable than the Retroid Pocket 5 was because of that. But if you're someone who does want the D-pad at the top and you want to play plenty of D-pad games, you can absolutely go for that. That is fine, it's up to you. So it's great that we get that option to put whatever we want in what I would call the primary position, and then the other one in the secondary position. One other gripe people had with the Retroid Pocket 5 that didn't bother me too much, but I definitely understood where people were coming from, was the face buttons that are very loud. Whenever I compare the Retroid Pocket 5 to any other handheld, it's always the loudest. The new Retroid Pocket 6 is clearly much quieter in this regard. It is a night and day difference. But let's actually compare the two. Here is my sound meter, and I'm going to set this up in the least scientific way ever, probably the worst way possible of using a sound meter. This is not going to be an extremely scientific reading, but let's just see what kind of ballpark figure it registers for these buttons. So first of all, here is the Retroid Pocket 5. And here is the Retroid Pocket 6. So the Retroid Pocket 5 was around 68 decibels, and the Retroid Pocket 6 is 61. So 6 or 7 decibels less there, which is quite a difference. But it's not just the volume, it's the tone. If you listen to the Retroid Pocket 5 buttons, they're quite high-pitched and clacky. The Retroid Pocket 6 buttons are a lot softer and muted sounding. Now let's see how they compare to each other with their grip cases on. So this is the grip case for the Retroid Pocket 5, which I highly recommend. Once again, it just gives a bit of extension from the base of your palm to your thumb. So if you're using the analog stick, you're able to at least kind of stretch your thumb up to it like this. You're not bending it down like that. So this is a great accessory for the Retroid Pocket 5. For the Retroid Pocket 6, I actually don't think this needs a grip. I'm finding it super comfortable already, but I did order one as well as some other accessories. So let's check those out now. So let's check out the grip now. Comes in a lovely matching purple color, a perfect color match to the actual console itself. And just before I put it on, I actually want to compare the grips themselves because they are quite a bit different. We have a lot more empty space here in the middle of the Retroid Pocket 6. I guess that accommodates the much larger ventilation area. Although that being said, a lot of this is not ventilation. It's just made to look like ventilation. It's simply just diagonal lines. This is the ventilation area. They are overall very similar. The actual girth again is quite similar. It has to be a bit larger on the Retroid Pocket 6 because the Retroid Pocket 6 itself is larger. And one thing I'm finding really interesting about this is that the Retroid Pocket 5 includes a grippy texture on the back, and then its case has a smooth texture. So it's kind of opposite like that. So by using the case, you're losing the grippy texture. The Retroid Pocket 6, on the other hand, is completely reversed. The Retroid Pocket 6 itself is completely smooth, and then the grip has a grippy texture. So it's the complete opposite situation of the Retroid Pocket 5. If you use it without a grip, you have a smooth texture. And if you add the grip on, you then get a grippy texture. I think that's really, really intriguing, and I'm not sure why they've done that. So the grip goes on nice and easy. It's a typical TPU grip. And yes, this feels really, really comfortable. First impressions, I think this, to me, is actually less comfortable than not having a grip. I'm finding the corners of the grip here to be kind of digging into the palm of my hand on immediate first impression. And when I try to cup my hand around it, it's kind of digging into the center of my palm. Now, it's not extremely uncomfortable, it's not sharp, but I do find that without the grip, it's just generally more rounded and forgiving. And already I can tell I'm not going to be using a grip with this. I think similar to the Retroid Pocket 5 situation, you may want to use a grip if you want to use the lower controls, as it gives you that further extension and comfort. But for me, I'm going to mostly just be using the left analog stick, and I don't see myself using that grip. But I will use it more and of course let you know in future follow-up videos. I also ordered the official case, which is just a very simple, sleek black case. Comes with some free ingestible poison. It goes in like so, fits pretty nicely, as you would hope. Has just one singular pocket in the top for maybe a cable or accessory. The zip is not particularly very smooth. I'm quite disappointed with this. You can see the case quite nicely contours the device, but I'm also noticing the Retroid Pocket logo is also wonky. It's not straight. This is a pretty poor case, to be honest. I'm quite disappointed with this. I think Retroid have got to improve this. I think this is pretty poor. And I also ordered the Retroid dock as well, so I can connect this up to the TV. But I did hear recently that it may not actually be compatible with the Retroid Pocket 6. Let's have a look if it fits in okay. It does seem to fit, so we'll have to try this out later for an upcoming video. I'll let you know if this dock works, and if it doesn't, I'll be sure to give you some alternatives so you can get it working on your setup. Just for some more quick comparisons, here is the Retroid Pocket 6 with the Retroid Pocket 5. Here is the Odin 3. Here is the Konkr Pocket Fit. And here is the Odin 2 Portal. So that's how all those devices line up with each other. For me, the perfect sized one is the Retroid Pocket 6. I'm finding this to be my ideal size of device. Of course, if you go a little bit bigger, you get the Odin 3 with even more power. It's an absolute beast of a device, but it's of course much more expensive. It has driver problems still, and it is a little bit bigger, although definitely not too big by any means. The Retroid Pocket 6, I believe right now, is the best overall value of the bunch because you immediately get fantastic support right out of the box. No worries with driver compatibility. It's small, it's light, it's well priced. I think this is going to be a home run for Retroid this year. Tomorrow I will do a big game test, my first real game testing of this device, so please let me know in the comments below what games do you want to see me test on this. Let me know what games you want me to play and I'll be sure to add them to my list and make a big game test video tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you there. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already to make sure you're caught up with all the latest Retroid Pocket 6 content. If you'd like to buy your own Retroid Pocket 6 like I have here, make sure you buy it from the official website. Check out my affiliate link to the official Retroid store in the description below. I'll just quickly update my YouTube bio for the first time ever. Done. And I'll see you again tomorrow, where it won't be long before we're saying hello again.